Hi, it's Rob here from Game Developer Studio. This is a quick video detailing the new additions to the GDS Editor app. These additions make it GDS Editor 1.4 and it's now available for launch from the website. So we can launch the app from the site, from the launch page, and as you'll see, it's a little bit different from the previous version. So the start screen is nothing but a blank screen indicating what you're supposed to do. So let's make a new blank scene and let's go over some of the features. I'm going to go over these features as quick as possible because there's quite a few features to go over. So as you'll notice, the scene palette is a little bit upgraded, but not much change there. I'm going to go ahead and drag in an asset pack. So like before, we can load an asset pack directly by dragging in a GDS file. So there's been a bit of a bug fix with the Z order control, which before was quite buggy and sometimes it put things over one another when they weren't supposed to be. So let's go through some of the main features that are new to 1.4. So as you'll notice, the multi-select is now handled by the respective dialogues. As you can see, the dialogues are opened on the left and on the right, sorry. So when we select multiple components on the scene, we can change the colors, edit the stroke weights, all from the same dialogue. Furthermore, you can access and target color groups all in the same dialogue. So here, if we want to just edit the bush, we can go through and target the bush. So even if we have 9 components selected, we can select the bush and change the color of the bush all at once. And that goes for resetting and re-establishing colors. Okay, so it might get confusing if you've got a whole scene selected. It'll go through and it'll extract every single color group. So if here we select leaves, everything that's got the color group leaves within your scene will change color. As you can see, only these have leaves. Everything with petals, only these have petal color groups. So if you're using the batch updater, it's probably best just to select a few. So these batch operations apply for multiple component types. So here you can turn off the shadows, turn on the shadows, turn off the stems. If the component has the operation, if it has a toggleable or it has a color group, it'll select it and control it depending on what you're doing. So the batch operations apply to all components and all dialogues. So we can access the selector width, we can change the opacity, all from the respective component, including the export, which I've added new export functions. So you can export components in selection, export the area, just the area, and send the selection to a new scene. So that's the end of the batch exporter, which was kind of a stand-in. So if we go to GDS 1.3, which looks quite old now, and let's create a new scene. Let's add some components. So before, the batch inspector opened like this and then you had to change control. So it was quite annoying every time you selected a component that this window would open and there was no way to control that. Now with the GDS Editor 1.4, the windows open only when you want them to. So if you select one cloud and you want to explore its transform, this dialog window will open and it will remain open on every new item that you select. It'll automatically close when you click off, but every time you select an item and you decide you want to look at its transform, You can open the transform inspector and change components and it'll remain open. Likewise for the color inspector. If you click off, it closes the window. The color transform. So the window management is a lot better and a lot more automated. Most of the windows try to get out of your way to leave the scene area easy for you to work from and give you more of a vision across your scene. Another new addition to 1.4 are extra SVG color functions. So as you can see, I've added contrast, hue shift and color blend. So they do what you'd expect. They adjust the contrast, the hue shift, I'll explain the hue shift in a second, and color blend. So color blend's a useful function for knocking back items so they don't jump out at you. If, for example, we load in the sky, it's a bit of a poor example with a cloud, but we can select a color and then blend that color to whatever degree to knock it back into the background. So you could probably achieve the same thing with opacity, but if you've got items behind, you can see through them. So opacity doesn't always do the job for that. Another color effect on SVGs is hue shift. So if we load in this item, for example, using a hue, the master hue will shift the hue for every item, for every component or every object in this SVG, every path in the SVG to the same hue. But the hue shift will start at the color of the component or the path in the SVG and move it across. So instead of setting it all one color, it shifts it across the colors. Another handy feature in 1.4 is the art object notification. So let's delete all these out of the scene and let's load in the plants. Okay. Now when you select an item, if the item has toggleable features, like this one for example, you can turn the shadow on and off. On this one you can turn the shadow on and off, and you can turn the stems on and off with toggleable features. The dialog button will be orange. If there's no toggleable features, only stroke, the dialog button will just be blue. It will just be the standard blue. So that's, if it's got features that you can activate and deactivate, that dialog button will display orange, so orange or red, so you can see. Furthermore, if a component doesn't have stroke or it doesn't have toggleable features, you won't even get to see this dialog button. So the GDS editor, it tries to manage exactly what you can do. Let me see if we've got an example of something without a stroke. Now these clouds don't have strokes, so as you can see, if we select, oh, they do have strokes. Nope. Have we got something without a stroke? This blur. So this blur doesn't have a stroke, and as you can see, there's no art object button, so that's been managed for you by the editor. Here there's a stroke. Here there's no stroke, so you can't access the properties. Okay, let's get rid of these and let's look at another new feature. So before with GDS Editor, it was mostly targeted at importing SVGs and GDS files from Game Developer Studio, but now you can import PNGs. Well, you could before, but there's also features available for PNGs. So if we open an asset pack, let's have a look. Let's find a PNG. Let's see if This has got a PNG. Nope, no PNG there. Let's see in the fruit icons, PNGs. Yeah, these are PNGs. So let's bring in a couple of PNGs. There we go. So as you can see, when you click on a PNG, GDS Editor finds the dialogues that are available to you and will display them on the right side. So here, now we've got a PNG, we can use the bitmap filters to change the hue, the saturation and illumination, as well as some blur filters and some other filters. A useful filter will be the pixelate filter. So if you're making pixel art, if you're making a game with pixel art, you can turn any GDS asset into a pixel art asset. Now again, you can remove filters and reset it back to the original. Also, some of those filters are available on non-ping assets, SVGs and GDS assets. Let me see if I can find one. Let's just import the top-down plants again. Okay, so let's open the filters. This is the filter button. These filters are filters on bitmap. So if you're expecting to export the SVG again after, the filters won't be applied. If it is an SVG base, you can save it as you can export it as an SVG file. But if you've applied a bitmap filter to the SVG, it won't be baked into the original SVG base file. But you've got access to pixelate and blur, brightness, contrast, and this anti-alias, this removes, if you're making pixel art, this will remove semi-opaque pixels around the edges. So this reduces the anti-alias. So anything that's semi-opaque will get clipped off with the anti-alias reduction. Another new feature is the export tool. So there was an export tool in GDS Editor 1.3. If we go here, this is the export tool. So in 1.3, you would drag the export tool over the area that you wanted to export, and it would export the scene for you. It's nice that it's fast, but it's not very useful if you don't get the export area right on your first try. So now the export tool, you can edit the export tool after you've dragged it out. So once you've dragged it, you can move it around onto your scene, clip to the area that you want, and you can export into the scene as a new PNG like this. That's from the export tool, which exports it as a PNG. Or you can export it to your disk as a PNG. If you decide that you don't want to export, you can cancel. So the export tool's seen quite a few improvements. Another new feature is the ability to copy and paste from external sources. So let's load a new scene. Let's just create a blank scene. So for example, if you're working on your game and you want to adjust an asset, you can grab a screenshot and you can paste it into the editor. So you can copy and paste SVG, and you can copy and paste PNGs and JPEGs and screenshots directly into the editor. And once they're into the editor, you can access them as if they were any type of art object. Now, to do this, you might have to give permissions. Because it's in a browser, the permissions for copying and pasting are set default to no. So you'll probably be prompted to give GDS Editor permissions to read from your clipboard. So if you say yes to that, you'll be able to copy and paste in. Another thing to note is it's not the standard Control C and Control V to copy and paste. GDS Editor has its own Control C, Control V copy and pasting system to copy and paste its own components. To copy and paste from external, you use Control V to paste, Alt and V to paste, and Alt and C to copy. Another new feature for GDS Editor are the post-it category tabs that allow you to organize your scenes. So if we drag in the top-down plants, okay, you'll see there's quite a few assets here. You can organize your assets with the categories. There were categories in GDS Editor 1.3, but none of the management was exposed. So to organize a category, you can select the assets that you want to put to the category, and you can use the C hotkey and it will send the assets to the category. As you can see, it's opened a new post-it category here with the assets that you sent it. So it's removed them from the main palette and it's sent them to this sub palette, this subcategory. Subcategories can't be nested, you can only have one category. And to manage the categories, if you want to destroy the category, you can use the destroy and it'll send them back to the main. So it doesn't delete the assets, it just returns them to your main. So let's have a look at controlling categories. Okay, so let's select them. You don't have to use the hotkey C, we can select the plus and it will open a new category and put them in. We can double clicking on the category tab or right clicking on the category tab will open the category options. So for the category options, we can set a reminder for the category tab color. We can set the name. Crawlers, and we can move it up. We can't move it up and down. Let's make a couple more. So we can move the category up and down to organize our categories. So you can organize your categories. If we select a new category here and we call it flowers. Now once assets are in a category, we can use the category group selection to lock, select and remove all in one go. So we can lock all these flowers. Now we can't select them, they're locked in place. We can select them all and we can unlock them, or we can remove them from the palette, remove them from the scene. So the category tabs offer a great way to organize scenes that have got lots of components. Let's select them all and let's make them visible. Okay. Further upgrades to the palette are Z orders. So if we take an asset, a component on the scene, and we look at it in the scene palette, you can see that it's somewhere down here. If we move it up and down, it's Z order. It'll remove respective to all the others. So the scene list, the palette item, the layer will be in a respective position. If you don't like that, you can turn that off with the checklist, with the Z checklist, and then when you move it up and down, it'll move up and down on the scene, but it won't move up and down in the palette list. So that's your choice. Personally, I don't like it moving around because I like to know where things are in the palette list. Another thing to note is if you want to change categories, if you want these flowers to move to the crawler category, for example, you select the flowers or select the items, the components that you want to move, select the category and use this little tab, this little button down here, and that'll move them into the category. So move those into the crawler category. There we go. and you can go organising your categories. If you want to move them back into the main, well, the same rule applies. Let's move them back into the main. If you select items that are already in the main and you move them to the category, nothing will change. So you can manage categories with the category tab by opening and adding a new category, using the add button to move components from one category to another, and double clicking to open the category options. Another option in the categories, the option that I use to build maker packs, is the toggle group. So toggle groups are, let's select one of these. Oh, another thing to note, if you select an item, when you select an item on the scene, it opens the corresponding category. So if I select this flower, we'll see that the flower category, let's change that color, the flower category should open. So when I select a flower, oh no, it's not in that category. When I select a flower, it moves to the correct category that it's in. So that was part of GDS 1.32. So yeah, another function of categories is toggle groups. So if you want to toggle, make your own toggle groups, let's send them to this category. We can open the toggle group and it will turn everything on and off except for one. So if you're building layered items like the donut maker pack on the site, for example, you can use this. Another improvement is a slightly improved simple text component. So if we bring in a text component, we can access more features. So I've added 10 new Google fonts, which are pretty funky for game development. And I've added the stroke shadow, text shadow, and stroke colors via the color picker. So to add a stroke color, it must be at least 1 pixel. And a text color. So you've got a bit of an improved simple text component. Another new feature are blend mode. So you can set the blend mode of your component on the scene, and the blend mode will affect how layers or components underneath the component will behave. So if we bring in an asset, create a new text, we can set the blend mode to control how each layer will interact with the layer below. So if you wanted to cut away the layer, you can cut it away. If you want it to remove everything below it, keep what's below it on the inside, you can control that with the blend mode. Okay, so those are the major new features available in 1.4. There's been lots of other little bug fixes on top of that, such as the grid icons now indicate the grid active. A couple of new export modes, so you can convert SVGs to PNGs, and it will create a new PNG on the scene for you. The checkers are smaller. The checkers state is saved to the scene, so when you save a scene, it saves whether the checkers on. You can manually adjust the zoom level through the zoom. You can change the name of your scene directly from the scene bar on the top. You don't have to open the settings to access the scene name. All color pickers are the brand new color picker, so instead of the standard HTML input which was used on the GDS 1.3. As you can see, the new color picker will let you control all the colors across the scene, as well as tell you a bit of information about the colors. So you've got color palettes, color tones. I'll go into more detail about this on another video, and I've got plans to improve this furthermore. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Remember, you can get to the GDS Editor app from the www.Game Developer Studio website, either from the banner or from the link in the navbar, and launch it from there. I've got more ideas for upcoming releases soon too. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.